The GINA philosophy, in its short form, is about being flexible. Thinking flexible, acting flexible, context over dogma. That's it. A GINA Light visionary model, first of all, asks the questions, well, what do we need the skin of a car for anyway? What's it there for? Does it have to be made out of metal? Do we have to make it always in the same manner? Or is it there for different purposes than we thought? In reality, the aspects of crash and stiffness and ride handling can be handled in a space frame type vehicle entirely without the skin. The outside of the car can be there for aerodynamic purposes, for aesthetic purposes, for protection, but not because it has to handle stress loads. And therefore, to go away from a metal skin and to have a skin that offers different capabilities, can move, can do things that a fixed rigid structure couldn't do, can be lighter, made out of materials which require less energy to make them. That's something that the GINA Light model brings as a question. Well, the story behind GINA is kind of interesting because it started with a question I asked the non-car designers at DesignWorks. DesignWorks is our daughter company, which then was only in California, now they're worldwide. And they do work for lots of people who do things like computers and boats and trains, lots of things. And I asked the people who were not the car guys, what would you do with a car? And one of the people came up with the idea, well, you know what, I would take a flexible skin and I would move it over a frame, and I think that's really kind of sexy and cool, and it gives a different emotional attitude. And to first see the idea of flexibility being handled not purely because it's a function, which in the past it had been. It's not the newest idea. There have been cloth cars around since the time cars were born. But the idea that through this, there's a new kind of emotion being born. And then suddenly we can link that with the whole idea of how do we move away from into rapid prototyping, from rapid prototyping to rapid manufacturing. This started a whole chain of ideas within the company here that GINA became not just a model that became a shape or just about cloth as a skin. It became about a thinking process, a philosophy that said, let's do things differently. Let's let materials talk in a different manner. And let's let tooling be a different issue instead of just the way to give us form. Well, one nice thing about GINA is the materials kind of lead the way. It doesn't take very much, and you get an idea exactly what this car is going to be like. For instance, to get an idea what the sculptural form is between a fender and, let's say, a wheel arch, you really only need a line around the wheels and a line more or less where you want the fender to be, and you'll let the material do the talking in between. So, in fact, the design team worked from sketches from the designer that said it more or less has this kind of a feeling, more or less this kind of emotion. But at that point, they began to move rods and wires and pieces of plastic tubing underneath a stretching skin until they got a shape they liked. And then, just like you would if you were getting a suit made, you made the first mock-up, you made the first forms and patterns, you sewed it up, you tried it out, made another one a little bit closer, and when you finally got the final one, zip, you put it on. It takes about 2 hours to put the skin on this car.